it's your girl, and I think I read the worst comic in all of 2019, probably in the last 10 years. God, this shit was bad. So it's only been 3 weeks since Diamond has resumed its regular shipping to local comic book shops, including our lovely floppy copies. And with that 3-week milestone, we have gotten probably one of the most absolute tone-deaf, ridiculous, worst of 2019, worst of the past 10 years comic book that DC might have ever published. That's a lie. Superman Year One was equally as bad. Actually, this might have been worse than Super Year One, so let's get into it. So, it's no brainer that I am a huge Birds of Prey fan, as you can tell by half of the content that is on my channel currently. I freaking love the Birds of Prey. Like, I love the Birds of Prey. They're my absolute favorite characters in comics and my favorite comic book group, and I love everything that they stand for. It makes me so sad to say that Birds of Prey #1, written by Brian Azzarello and illustrated by Emanuela Lupacchino, is actually probably one of the worst things that I have ever read in the history of forever. You know, this book was announced last year, and when I heard that Brian Azzarello was going to be attached to it, I literally lost my shit, literally. If you were on my Instagram last year, you saw the big rant that I made, and I'm pretty sure I made some Twitter rants about it too, that Brian Azzarello being attached to a Birds of Prey book was just absolutely bonkers and insane, and I don't understand why it was happening, let alone the fact that Harley Quinn was being thrown into the Birds of Prey mix, but we obviously know why that was happening, aka movie. We gotta make everything look like the movies nowadays. But Brian Azzarello being a part of this creative team was the thing that bothered me the most. For those of you that don't know, let's have a little history on Brian Azzarello. Brian Azzarello, honestly, is kind of like one of the bad boys in comics. He's super edgy. Everything he writes is just balls to the wall, edgy, dark, cryptic. It's everything that I hate. He's like the bad version of Donny Cates. Donny Cates is the good bad boy in comics. Brian Azzarello is basically modern day Frank Miller, and no, that is not a compliment. So Brian Azzarello is famously known for doing things like Batman Damned, aka the Batman Peen book. He's also famously known for doing Wonder Woman, the New 52. That book in particular, more so than Batman Damned, is why I have so many problems with Azzarello. So if you didn't read Wonder Woman New 52, hold on to your fucking shorts because you're in for a trip. So Wonder Woman New 52, I'm not gonna go into specifics and issues. We're kind of just gonna gloss over some of the crappy things that Brian Azzarello did with that book. But to start things off, he completely retconned Diana's origin. She was no longer a daughter of Hippolyta and a daughter of the Amazons sculpted from clay, but now with the New 52 iteration, she was going to be a daughter of Zeus, which just sounds really creepy to me, and I don't like that, but I guess I'll let that slide, except, oh no, here comes the worst of it. So, throughout the New 52 Wonder Woman run, Brian Azzarello also decided that he would make matters worse, and when I say that, I mean he basically confirmed that the Amazons would lure men to the island for the purpose of procreation. He confirmed that the Amazons raped men for the sake of getting pregnant, and then threw them into the ocean like they were some garbage trash, which, don't get me wrong, men are trash, but I draw the line. To make matters worse, it was also confirmed that any sons that were born of the Amazon, which were unwanted because they're men, and men we've established are trash, but men that were born to the Amazons on Themyscira would be sold as slaves to work in Hephaestus's forge. What? Alright, so you want a little bit more? Let's talk about the fact that in Batman Damned, Harley Quinn kind of rapes Batman, because apparently that is a theme with Azzarello's comics, is rape, which is disgusting and ew, gross, why? And then we could also throw in his creator-owned comic Faithless, which basically used lesbians as a metaphor for Dante's 7 Circles of Hell. It was just really gross. All of the characters in that book were very stereotyped, and that includes your queer women, and that also includes black women and any person of color that was in that book. Basically, we've established that Brian Azzarello should not be allowed to write women, yet he is being allowed to write Birds of Prey, which is an all-female group. Yikes. Now, when I think of Birds of Prey, I immediately think of Gail Simone, as I'm sure most comic fans and comic book readers do. Gail Simone honestly made these women what they are. They made these characters what they are and why we love them. At its basis, the Birds of Prey run by Gail Simone, which spanned over like 60 issues or something, it was about empowerment. It was about strength, both physically and mentally. And this went for Barbara Gordon, this went for Black Canary, this went for Huntress, and everybody else in between. That's why I think Gail Simone had a rotating cast for the Birds of Prey for a majority of her run, is because it was to show diversity. It was for women and female readers and just any reader in general to connect with these powerful female characters, because at the end of the day, Birds of Prey should be accessible to everybody. You know, call me a raging feminist weirdo, and while I acknowledge the fact that Chuck Dixon, a male writer, is who created the Birds of Prey, there's just something about the fact that when men write the Birds of Prey, it just doesn't sit right for me. Like I said, Birds of Prey, it stands for female empowerment and embodiment of these things, and that started with Gail Simone and took its way all the way into the Benson sisters run with the Rebirth Birds of Prey, which while it wasn't great, it still had these core values attached to the characters. So the fact that Brian Azzarello, who we've already established should definitely not write women, is writing this book just feels all kinds of gross, and I could honestly talk about this for an hour, and my timer says that I've been talking about it for about 8 minutes, so I should probably shut up and get more into the comic book and why it's the worst thing that we ever read. So Birds of Prey was set to be an ongoing series. However, with the solicitations of issue number 2, it was suddenly announced that Birds of Prey would no longer become an ongoing. Instead, it would be a one-shot, an oversized 100-issue one-shot, basically Frankensteining together what was already there, I guess. And not only that, not only was it going to become a oversized one-shot, but it was also being moved to DC Black Label, which is basically DC Comics except make it edgy. I'm not gonna lie with you guys, I went into full-blown panic mode when this was announced. The fact that it was going to DC Black Label kind of was just like, with Brian Azzarello's history, I was like, he's probably going to try and write a rape scene, and that made me panic, and I didn't want that. And the fact that a lot of this had to do with Black Canary, it seemed like she was always in the solicitations, I kind of panicked, and with good reason, because look at this guy's track history. I mean, he's kind of a creep. Is that the nice way of saying it? He's kind of a creep? We're gonna go with creep. I could call him much worse, but we're gonna say he's a creep. That's basically the history of Birds of Prey. Yeah, it's really bad. And when I say the history of Birds of Prey, I mean the history of this weirdo Frankenstein one-shot. So let's actually talk about the book, even though I really don't want to talk about the book because there is a chance that I'm going to start violently crying or screaming on camera, and I don't think you guys want to see that. Birds of Prey number 1 is just gross, it's violent, it is sexist, it is very racist. Yes, I went there. I mean, look at the cover, it is very racist. I'm going to try and piece together the plot, but that is one of the problems, is there is not a plot for Birds of Prey number 1. So the book starts off with Black Canary getting a phone call from an ex. At least you think he's an ex, but she gets this weirdo phone call from some guy from her past, and he's literally being hunted down and killed by these very racist, very stereotyped Hispanic Latino gang leaders. So he gets gunned down and his head chopped off, and there's this really weird comment where he asks Dinah as he's dying for her to think of him in the shower. Ew, why? So that happens, and then Dinah kind of goes into this spiral. Steve Trevor is thrown into the mix, which, why? But Dinah basically goes into this drunken, depressive spiral over this guy that she couldn't save, except in the book, she mentions the fact that she didn't even really like the guy. They weren't really friends. He might have made her smile or laugh once, but other than that, she don't care. She has no connections or feelings to this character. So Brian Azzarello thinks it's okay because she is a woman to get really sad and really drunk and go to a bar and sleep with other men, because of course that's what women do when they're upset over people that they don't even care about, of course. Meanwhile, Harley Quinn has been released from Belle Rev and the Suicide Squad with Amanda Waller. There's also this really gross and disgusting full-page splash of her taking off the Daddy's Little Monster t-shirt and leaving her in her bra. While I appreciate the artwork that Emanuela Lupacchino has done here, If this page was not drawn by a woman, I can't even begin to think about how just disgusting it would be, even more so than it already is. I can't help but think about the fact that Brian Azzarello literally wrote into a script, Harley Quinn walks shirtless in her bra and tight booty shorts away from a prison.
It's gonna be so bad. Okay.
Because you know that's what was in the script. Not only that, but why are we bringing the whole daddy's little monster clothing Suicide Squad thing into it? I know that we've been kind of adapting that look more so for comics. I know what's happened with the Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Conner run, where they've given her the blue and pink pigtails, but that was taking inspiration from something and making it their own and kind of showing that off in their comics, whereas this is literally just Harley Quinn from the Suicide Squad movie. So I can't help but feel like this is because Brian Azzarello was originally supposed to be writing a Suicide Squad comic, but something happened where he got kicked off, and thankfully we have Tom Taylor on that book now. So anyway, we have Harley Quinn breaking out of well, not breaking out, but she's being released from Belle Rev. Meanwhile, you have Renee Montoya and Helena Bertinelli, both of which are women of color and yet are depicted not really as such. They're depicted as tan rather than being a Hispanic woman and a Black Italian woman. So I kind of have a lot of issues with that, and it's kind of weird and something that I can't think past. So you have them trying to track down this Hispanic gang. Meanwhile, the Hispanic gang over here is using Spanish that is ripped straight from Google Translate. I'm not going to go too much into that because I am not a Hispanic woman. However, Kate Sanchez over at ButWhyThoPC has written an excellent Birds of Prey review who focuses more so on the racist aspect of this book, and I definitely think that you should be checking that out. I'm going to leave that link down in the bio below. Just know that I also agree that this book is very racist. However, I want to highlight some of the more issues with this book that I have, because boy, we're getting into it. So while all this is going down, we're going to go back to Dinah, because obviously I have tunnel vision when it comes to my best girl, Black Canary. Dinah has some instances with her band, and it's really great to see the Black Canary band back again, except JK. Brian Azzarello is about to come in and ruin everything forever. We also come to the fact that Lord Byron, one of my favorite characters from the Black Canary run, who is a non-binary Black queer character, we're going to make them a drug addict now. Why? This is so tone deaf and so stereotyped, and I hate it a whole heck of a lot. But guess what? It's gonna get way worse because, spoiler warning, they kill Lord Byron via drug overdose. And the way that they do it is so frustrating and so just, I don't want to say annoying, but it's just uncalled for. There's no reason for it. There's a part in the book where Dinah is on her drunken binger over a guy that she didn't even care about, and she gets a call from Lord Byron asking for help. Basically saying, hey, I'm going to go out and buy more drugs. I'm probably going to use again. I need your help. Can you come help me? And do you know what Black Canary does? Black Canary says, no, I have a date. I need to go and drunkenly hook up with people because I am depressed and sad over a character that I don't even care about. Meanwhile, my bandmate and probably one of my closest friends is on the verge of doing something catastrophic, and I'm just gonna let them do it. Lord Byron dies, and that makes Dinah angry, and that is what kind of pulls Dinah with the rest of the Birds of Prey, going after these Hispanic gang members. I don't know what else to call them because they don't actually ever give them a name. Brian Azzarello never gives them a name. He never really gives them a purpose of why they're doing what they're doing and why they're killing people. They are literally just there because, oh, look, people in Sugar Skull makeup is really cool and it looks kind of badass and it's edgy. I'm basically spoiling the whole book. I don't care at this point. I don't think that you should be buying this book. I definitely do not support you reading this. So our Birds of Prey meet up in a shower sauna where all of our girls are wrapped in bath towels, and I can't help but feel like this is some weird, very fetishized thing that's happening right now, and I hate it. They go from there and they decide to ambush the gang members because, yeah, it's typical cop stuff. We have to ambush them, and the way that we're gonna do it is by dressing up as nuns. Except, why are we dressing up as nuns? Because we literally hide behind a wall and then we jump out and kill the gang people or take them arrest or whatever. That's it. That's basically how that book ends with that story. Is our Birds of Prey meet up, they dress up as nuns, they go to a church, they fight the gang members. They don't even show them taking them to prisons or putting them in handcuffs. They just sort of say, hey, I'll visit you at Rikers, cut screen. But that's not the end of the book. The end of the book is actually with Harley Quinn going off with the Joker gang because they got involved at some point somehow for no reason. And you see Joker off screen, and it's basically this 2-page span of just edgy, oh, I loved you, but I realized that it was bad to love you, so now I don't love you, and instead I'm going to kill you. And it's literally 2 pages of internal monologuing, or actually I guess it's alternal monologuing, but you get the point. Harley Quinn is going through this ridiculous 13-year-old edgy monologue that we've seen 100 times in comics at this point, because I agree, the Joker is bad for you, girl, but what is it doing in this comic? It makes no sense. This entire book makes no sense. The pacing is weird. The racism is weird. The sexual stuff is very weird. The fact that Black Canary is completely out of character and lets one of her closest friends dies. Very, 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 very weird, and I hate it. And I need to speak with somebody at DC Comics. I need to know why this book was made, why this book was allowed to be put on shelves. And especially with everything that's going on right now, this book is highly inappropriate. There is absolutely no reason why this book couldn't have been pulled or at least delayed. I know it was delayed a million times before, but this book is just the worst. And unfortunately, there are a lot of white comic journalists out there who are men who really like this book and are in favor of this book and are saying that you should read this book. However, it's gross, and they're not seeing the issues and the problems with it. This is just, I guess, my warning rant. I need to get it off my chest that Birds of Prey #1, Black Label, whodunit, whatever, is just bad. You should not be reading it. Don't read it. Read other good Birds of Prey stories like Gail Simone or even the Benson sisters. Read anything other than this if you want to read Birds of Prey content, because at this point, they're kind of just, it feels like they're trying to grab sales because Harley Quinn's at the forefront, but it just doesn't make sense. So I'm going to leave this video off with a note, and that note is, stop letting Brian Azzarello write women. There it is. Okay, bye!